Hi, Amir.
Yes,
It looks like your hearing is actually October 6th with Judge Oakley.
October 6th.
Yeah, it's October 6th. Let me make sure that all of them are scheduled for the correct day because did you think it was today? Is that why you're here today?
Yes,
Yep. October 6th at 9:20, same Zoom room or yeah, same Zoom room. Let
I
me
do.
see. Wait a minute. Hold on. When am I going live? Start live. Yep, it'll be by Zoom October 6th.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
Yes, I'll bring him right out here. You want him on that side? Yeah, he's gonna sit there. Okay. Oh, let me just- Yes. Here's the situation. Sure. It's up to the judge. That's this. No, not this. Yeah. That's funny though. Description is where it doesn't include the do reg. I mean, that's.
All rise. Good report now in session. Judge Oakley presides.
Have a seat.
All right, appearances on the People versus Raymond Jackson Jr.
Good morning, Your Honor. Soren Lofsisian on behalf of the people, P83923.
May it please court, Your Honor, Tyrone Bickett appearing on behalf of Mr. Raymond Jackson Jr. was present to my left, Your Honor. Key
Good
number
morning.
62647.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Judge, I do have a preliminary matter. I had sent an email on Friday afternoon. I spoke with the first complainant, Ms. Bowie, Andrea Bowie, and she is stuck in Florida. She was there, and then I guess her sister was taken to the hospital, and so she wasn't able to come back in time. And
Do the name again.
Ms. Bowie, Bouie.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So my request would be to have that one adjourned. The second complainant, Alexandria Worthy, is here and we're ready to move forward on that. The reason why these cases were brought together is given the similar circumstances and, but they are separate incidents, so we can bind over them separately if Your Honor is okay with adjourning that one given the circumstances and moving forward with the second incident.
Okay, Mr. Booker.
Your Honor, this was brought to my attention this morning, and I was just trying to pull up the email. I mean, for the record, Your Honor, we are scheduled for today. I really take no position as to it, Your Honor. Again, I have no reason to dispute the representations that are made. I would, for the record, ask for a dismissal on behalf of my client, Mr. Jackson Jr.
Say that again. The doors are open.
I would, for the record, ask for a dismissal of that matter based on the fact that, again, we were prepared to proceed today. And so, again, at this point, all I know, and I apologize, it was brought to my attention this morning. I haven't had a chance to see the email, but I'm not disputing what's been stated. I just would say that, again, whether this could have been set up for a Zoom or some other type of way where that would have appeared, I would just argue that possibly that could have been done. I would ask for a dismissal.
Okay, is that an option?
Judge, just for clarification, I did also include Mr. Bickert in the email on Friday. He would have seen it because I did send it to all parties included. I did not want to do it over Zoom, just given last time our conversations about having witnesses on Zoom. I thought it would be better to do it in person.
Well, I'll give you the option. I'll give you the option because I'm not going to adjourn it.
Say that again?
I'm not going to adjourn it, so I'll give you the option. If you want to get her on Zoom, we'll do it on Zoom. Or try to, depending on her connection. Or you can refile.
Okay.
case number ending in 25. So can we get started on the other one?
Yes, we can.
All right. You want to grab your, is your victim the first witness?
Yes, she is.
Because he's been in custody long enough to probably do something like that. Ma'am, all the way up front, please. Watch your step on this incline ramp. It'll trip you up if you're not ready for it. Right over there, yep. And raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth today? And a seat right there. Settle in and then state your name for me.
My name is Alexandra Worthy.
Thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you. Can you please spell your name? First name Alexandra, Alexandra. Last name Worthy, Worthy.
Thank you, Ms. Worthy. Are you currently employed?
I am still employed.
Where are you employed at?
Piedmont Airlines, which is right under American Airlines.
And where is your, where do you work? Like, or what is the location of where you work?
Detroit Metro Airport.
And is that in Romulus and Wayne County?
It is.
Do you go into the office physically?
I do.
And did you go into work on May 17th, 2022?
I did.
Do you recall what time you got to work?
It was around 7 a.m.
Okay. And where did you park that day? Or where do you usually park?
My assigned secure parking lot.
Okay, and where is that assigned secured parking lot?
It's in the overflow deck of the big blue deck at the north terminal side.
And what did you do when you pulled into work that day?
I swiped my badge in to access the parking lot, parked, and walked up to the elevators, took the elevator to the 4th floor.
How far is your office from where you park?
It's about 1.5 miles.
Okay. And what happened once you got onto the 4th floor?
I came out of the elevator. I was met with the suspect. He startled me. And then I continued my walk on the moving sidewalk. I noticed that he started to follow kind of behind me, but he was not on the moving sidewalk with me. He was on the stationary sidewalk next to me. He kept pacing back and forth, sometimes in front of me, sometimes behind me. Every time I tried to look at his face, he would start to kind of look around and try to kind of deflect his face. That went on for the distance of 2 moving sidewalks. By the time I got to the end of the second moving sidewalk, he came in front of me, continued to kind of look around. And then I proceeded through another sliding door. And that's when he attacked me.
Okay, so when you saw him in the, while you were on the moving stairwell, what was what else did you notice about him? Or was there anything that you noticed that was, that kind of, I guess, alarmed you or is of concern?
Number one, I noticed that he was not wearing anything to indicate that he was an employee. His wardrobe, there was no badge, there was not even work shoes, nothing. I noticed he didn't have any bags. I noticed initially that he was talking out loud.
What was he saying?
I'm looking, I'm looking, I'm looking, I'm looking. I noticed that he kept checking his watch. Every time I would look at him, he just kept checking his watch and looking around, checking his watch. He kept, just running up back and forth. Usually in such a distance, people use the moving sidewalk. He never used the moving sidewalk.
And at this time, what were you thinking?
Just to be aware, take note. I'm usually aware in such an area, a secluded area. But that was just kind of like, just be alert, keep an eye out, watch your surroundings.
You mentioned a secluded area. Was anyone else around during
No.
that time?
No, not at all.
Okay. And can you describe what the individual looked like?
Yes. I remember him being about 6 feet, outgrown haircut. He had on like a dingy t-shirt that was like stretched out. He had on a blue jean, but they were not blue. They were just kind of like an off color, like a brownish gray, with kind of like the dirty rinse on them. I remember specifically he wasn't wearing work shoes. He was wearing maybe like a cream or a white tennis shoe, like a street shoe. That was another kind of an alarm because it indicated that he wasn't going into maybe one of our vendors or a place that would require you to wear a work shoe. And that gold shiny watch, it was, round and very noticeable. That was an indicator that made me think he wasn't homeless. Just having that on him. Him not having bags was also kind of an indicator because usually homeless people have a bag. He didn't have any bag with him.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you went through the sliding glass door and you were attacked. Tell us about how you were attacked.
So I kept telling myself if I could just make it about 10 more feet into like some kind of public area. I darted through the sliding glass doors and they're a slow catch. So you like run up on the door and they start to open. And I got through the doors and I heard feet run up behind me. And just as I went to go turn to look behind me, he grabbed the back of my neck and slammed me forward on the ground. I remember turning over to try to fight, and he just grabbed the back of my head and kept slamming my head into the ground. At that point, I kept moving side to side because I didn't want to be knocked out. You start to take notice of the situation. So I remember looking at his hands, he didn't have a weapon. I remember him being on top of me and his pants were still up. So I knew that there's got to be a delay there at least. He just kept hitting me and slapping my arms, and he kept trying to turn me over onto my stomach. I was wearing a skirt. So he finally got me onto my stomach and lifted up my skirt, to expose my buttocks. And just kept slapping and hitting and grabbing my butt. And then all of a sudden he just stopped and got up and ran.
So you mentioned that he was slamming your head to the ground. What kind of ground was it? What was beneath you?
Like the cement walkway.
And did your head actually make contact with the ground?
Absolutely.
Do you remember about how many times he was slamming you down to the ground?
At least 3 times.
Was he saying anything to you at this time?
Nothing.
Were you saying or doing anything?
Screaming.
And you mentioned you were wearing a skirt, is that correct? Can you tell us what, if anything, you were wearing underneath your skirt?
I had a thong.
Okay,
No pantyhose.
no pantyhose.
Correct.
And so when he was making contact with your buttocks, what was making contact with it?
His
What part of
hands.
his, sorry?
His hand.
His hands, okay.
Mhm.
And that was direct contact onto your butt.
Correct.
Did he hit any other part of your body?
I don't think so. I can't remember.
When this assault was going on, what were you feeling or thinking?
Number one, I kept saying I'm not gonna get raped in my place of employment. I refused. Obviously, I can't help that, but that was my main thing, that I'm gonna fight until I have no fight left. I'm gonna scream. I'm not a screamer. I'm gonna scream as much as I possibly can. At some point, an employee is gonna come through that area to be going to work and someone will hear me. I kept thinking he doesn't have a weapon, so it's me and him, and I'm gonna fight. That's all I have. The disbelief that it's happening at your job, the airport, it's supposed to be the safest place. I chose that job because of that. And you're just scared. I was scared.
When he ran off, what did you do afterwards?
I grabbed my purse, my phone that slid, my shoes off the ground, and ran the rest of the way into the common area before the Sky Bridge. And I was met with another employee of the actual airport. And we are taught when we go through training for badging at the airport, procedures, emergency procedures. So she followed everything. She called on the back of her badge, everything in process.
And you mentioned initially that you were startled by this individual. Had you ever seen him before where you were working?
No.
Can you describe how you were physically feeling afterwards?
Never got into a fight before. Extremely sore. Bruises. My body was just like, you feel like you're hit by a truck. I've never been in an accident. Nothing. I've just never been a physical person. I don't really work out, so there's nothing in me that gets tired like that.
Where were you specifically sore? What part of your body?
My arms, my legs, the back of my head and my neck was just, I mean, I remember being so afraid that it was something worse. That was a big concern.
And then you mentioned bruising. Where was the bruising that you had?
My arms and my legs and the lower part of my upper neck area, upper back area, if that makes sense.
Did you, so once the policies or procedures were followed, did you end up speaking to police about what happened?
I did. We went through, we walked through the whole entire scene, from elevator all the way until where I finally was met with police. From there, we went to the police station. We did all the processing. We did forensics, nail scrapings, pictures, everything. And then from there, they took me ramp side to my office and I got my paperwork from my company, and followed the procedures concentra to the hospital.
When you were at the hospital, did they take any tests or do any
They did,
scans?
they did CAT scan.
And any, I guess, noticeable injuries other than the ones that you've already described from after your hospital visit?
Just soreness. They diagnosed me with no concussion.
Okay. Do you remember about how long that this lasted, the entirety of it, since when you saw him when you saw him when you exited the elevator until at the end?
Like I said, I believe that I got to the airport about 7 o'clock,
Mhm.
maybe 7:05. I called, I texted my boss, my GM. I'm never late. And I knew they were gonna worry. And I text my GM at about 7:30 stating I was attacked. The police are coming. So in that time period.
Okay. And were you able to see the individual's face who assaulted you?
Yes, he never wore a mask.
Okay. And so if you saw that person again, would you be able to identify them?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you see that individual who assaulted you in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you please identify what he is wearing?
Olive green. I don't know if it's a shirt or a jumpsuit, and his mask today.
May the record reflect that the complainant has identified the defendant Raymond Jackson as the individual who assaulted her.
Noted.
Thank you. Sorry, just give me 1 second, make sure I didn't. One moment, please. I have no further questions, thank you.
Mr. Bickert, your witness.
Thank you, Evan.
Morning.
I'm gonna ask you questions. If I ask you anything that is confusing or convoluted, or I phrase it poorly, I will try to rephrase it. Okay? Sorry about that. Is that better? Okay. Miss Worthy, I'm gonna kind of have to go back over some things. It's gonna seem a little bit repetitive. I will try to not repeat as much as I can. I want to go back just because you understand the layout better than I do. Okay. You arrive at work approximately 7 a.m. right? And which this may seem like a silly question, but when was your shift scheduled to start?
My actual shift does not start till 8:30.
And so, you park in, and I'm somewhat familiar with the parking deck. Um, I believe you said you're on the 4th floor. Is that where you park?
No.
Okay,
Employees are not allowed to, well, my level of employment, we're not allowed to park in the actual blue deck.
okay,
There is an overflow lot that is not covered. There are cameras that face the lot. We park in that lot on the ground floor, 1st floor. So I park, go into the parking structure elevator. Up to the 4th floor is where the walkway is.
okay, okay. So you basically go through the deck, you through the parking garage or structure, and you go into an elevator in the garage. Is that?
The elevator is kind of sectioned off from the actual garage once again.
Okay, okay. I guess more importantly, when you come out of the elevator, help me understand where you're at that point.
Upstairs? you're
Yes,
asking?
when you come out of the elevator and then you, I assume at some point, enter a door. Can you help us understand like how that?
Yep.
works?
When you exit the elevator, there is kind of like a little area that they store equipment.
Okay, so this is indoors?
It's inside, it's
Okay,
indoors.
okay,
There is a sliding glass door there. So you have to go through the sliding glass door,
okay.
and then you can proceed onto the moving sidewalks.
Okay. The moving sidewalks, I assume at this point, so this entire time you're inside, you're never
Yes.
outside.
Never outside.
Okay. In this area near where the moving sidewalks are, would this be now the 4th floor? Am I correct that this is now, if you were coming from the terminal or the airport and you came across to that area, would that be the 4th floor?
Correct, it's
Okay.
the 4th floor.
Okay. And that area where the 2 moving walkways are, how far is that? How close is the parking? Not the parking where you park, but parking for the public.
Parking for the public, there are, in the area with the 2 moving walkways, there is approximately 4 doors that lead to the outside parking deck on the 4th floor, just in that area alone.
Okay, that's the area I'm familiar with. That's where I'm trying to get
Yes,
some context. Okay, if I were to, the area that you just described,
Mm.
that's open to the public,
Mhm.
if I were to park in that area
Mhm.
and then come through one of those doors,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm trying to go to the terminal,
Correct. Mhm.
I would walk down there and then I would encounter these movers. Is that fair?
That's true,
Are those the same movers that you're talking about?
that's true.
Okay, all right. As I proceed down that hallway, am I correct in that there's kind of a turn to where
Yes.
you cannot stand where the movers are and see the terminal? Is that fair?
That is true.
Okay, all right. And help me out. There's 2 sets of movers, or are there 2 sets of movers side by side? Or are there 2 different movers kind of in 2 different places?
There are 2 movers, one right in front of each other.
Okay,
So it stops and it
Okay.
goes.
Okay.
That's because sometimes they go out and you gotta walk around them. But there's 2 sets of movers there
okay,
before you get to the curb
okay. And just for the record, Your Honor, I think we're both indicating that there's
in
one,
front of each other.
and then there's another one after the first one, instead of
Correct.
side by side. Is that correct, ma'am?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
This area of the movers, is this the area where the attack occurred, or is
No.
this the area where you were just describing you were walking?
This is the area that I described I was walking. This is not where the attack took place.
Okay, okay. In kind of the context of, in my mind, I have the parking lot back that way
I
and the
understand.
terminal that way. Which, were you heading towards the terminal when?
I was
Okay.
into work.
Okay, all right. So you've passed the movers, basically.
Correct.
You've made the little turn.
The second, after the second mover is the second sliding glass door, the one with the catch that I mentioned. From there is the curve into the actual terminal area. That is where the attack took place.
Okay.
It's open, so voices travel in that area. It travels out towards the terminal area.
Okay, and this area that we're discussing, it is open to the public, correct?
It is.
Um, Thank you.
Mhm.
Had you already went through the glass doors when you were grabbed?
Yes,
Okay, and so you had mentioned at one point the Sky Bridge.
yes,
Um, have you crossed over the bridge yet?
I didn't make it.
Okay, all right, so you're on the, for lack of a better way to put it, the garage side of the street.
I'm in that curve that you mentioned. There is coming out of that curve, there's another turn. And there's two more moving sidewalks,
Okay.
one right in front of another. And there is the Sky Bridge that takes you over to the terminal side with gates.
Understood,
So I didn't make it that far.
understood, okay. When this ended, you said that the first person that you observed was a coworker. that
She
you-
was not a coworker. She was an employee of the airport
Oh.
itself.
Okay. And you did not know her?
No,
Did that person indicate to you in any way that they had observed what had happened?
no, no one observed.
At least as far as you know.
Correct.
Were you ever shown any video regarding this incident?
No,
And just so I'm clear, not just of what, what the attack itself, but any video in relation to this case.
that I wasn't shown any video.
Were you shown any video in relation to this case?
No, I don't think so.
At some point, were you sent a picture?
I was
And how many pictures were you sent?
2.
And were those two different individuals, or were they two pictures of the same individual?
The same individual.
And when you were sent these pictures by the police, correct?
Correct.
Were you ever asked to do a lineup in this case?
I'm sorry?
Were you ever asked to do a lineup?
No,
You were sent two pictures of a man, correct?
correct,
And they were both the same man.
correct.
And do you recall where the individual was located in the pictures?
I do.
Where was that?
On a shuttle.
On a shuttle?
Mm.
Okay. You indicated that the person that attacked you did not have a mask
He did not.
and those things, and you described some other things about that person. You were asked today about if you saw that individual or if you saw anyone that you believed to be that individual. You indicated that you believe that to be my client, Mr. Jackson. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Jackson currently does have a mask on
He
up to
does.
underneath his nose, correct?
He does.
Other than the two pictures that you were sent by the police, were you asked to view any other pictures?
No,
Do you believe the pictures that you were sent were of Mr. Jackson, this man said he?
absolutely.
Am I correct in assuming that prior to you uh, viewing those pictures and indicating what you indicated here today, that you never said to the police, hey, the guy that attacked me was this guy named Mr. Jackson, or anything like that, right?
No,
Okay, all right. And in fact, first of all, you never met this man sitting here before, correct?
I did not.
Okay. And the person who attacked you, similarly, you had never met that person as well?
No, I did not.
Okay. And just so we're clear, you would never show any pictures of any other men?
Correct.
I believe you said that the individual did not say anything once the attack started?
Correct.
In fact, did the individual ever say anything to you at all?
He spoke around me.
And that was the I'm looking thing. And did it appear to you that that person was talking to anybody in particular, or that they were talking to themselves?
Initially, I thought he was on the phone.
Okay.
I thought he was using a headset. I thought he might have been someone looking to pick up someone in the airport. It's a lot. You get confused where the Uber area is, things like that. So I'm awful at giving people the benefit of the doubt. Because he didn't have a bag, I figured that he might have been picking up someone. It didn't occur to me until I reached that second moving sidewalk when he came in front of me that he showed the other side of his head, and he did not have an earpiece in, and he did not have a phone in his hand, and he was never talking to anyone.
And at that point, now that all of that that you have observed all of that, you don't believe, as you sit here today, that that person was speaking to anyone in particular.
Correct.
Okay. And they certainly were not speaking to you.
Correct.
You indicated at one point that you swiped your badge. Is that you kind of ran us through how you got there? Was that when you initially parked and like the very first door?
To access our parking lot, it's considered a secure area for employees. We have to use our actual badge, our Wayne County badge, to gain access to the parking lot.
Okay. All right, thank you. You indicated while you were at the movers, and at some point I believe on the mover. Am I correct? You used the mover, both of them?
I used the movers, he did not.
Okay. And you said at one point that the individual was sometimes in front of you and sometimes behind you.
Correct.
Can you kind of help me understand what you mean by that in the sense? I mean, was this person running or like?
So the moving sidewalks go at a pace faster than what I walk. He used the stationary sidewalk next to it.
Okay.
He would lightly jog up in front of me, and I was walking with the walking sidewalk,
Okay.
but not as fast as his jog.
Okay.
So he'd jog up a little in front of me, stop, look around to where he'd be behind me at that point, and then he'd jog up a little bit more in front of me, look around, he'd be behind me at that point again, and he kept doing that until we got to the end of the second one, to where he came in front of me.
Okay, and I do apologize to belabor this point. From the end of that second one, when you said, "Hey, he's in front of me now," at some point, then you passed him again, correct?
So when the end of the second moving sidewalk, when he came in front of me, there's an elevator that's right there.
Okay.
He kind of stood in front of it, facing the elevators. Once again, not facing me, but that is how I saw the other side of his head. And once again, he's looking around, checking his watch. And that's when I tried to dart for that second sliding door.
Okay, when you say you tried to dart, that was kind of my next question. Is by this point, is it fair to say that at least your attention is attracted to this person?
Elevated.
Okay. All right. Were you concerned?
Absolutely.
You indicated that, and I believe that, well, let me just ask again. I apologize. You said that your skirt was pulled up at one point.
My
You were
skirt.
asked, yes, your skirt, and you were asked what you had underneath your skirt. Can you repeat that for me, just to make sure I wrote it?
Under my skirt, I had a thong on,
Okay.
no pantyhose.
Okay, and am I correct in saying that there was no way for anyone to know that prior to your skirt
Correct.
being pulled up? Okay, I mean,
Correct.
it wasn't, and there was no obvious sign that was the case. Is that fair? Okay. You indicated that you ran at some point the rest of the way to the Sky Bridge. I believe this is after.
After the attack.
If they took over. And then was it, where did you encounter the other employee?
Like I said, when you come around where the attack happened was halfway through that curve.
Okay,
There's another turn, 2 moving sidewalks.
okay,
At the end of that is the area that you would see the Sky Bridge, or you could go right and see access to Uber area and things like that.
Okay.
In that area, I was met with an employee coming from that direction.
okay.
There was other people around,
Okay.
but the employee is the one that spoke.
Did anyone ever indicate to you that they had heard you screaming?
No,
At one point, you indicated that you had a specific thought of, hey, this person doesn't have a weapon.
correct.
I assume, it's fair to say that this person never did anything to imply that they had a weapon or anything like that, right?
I never saw a weapon.
Just one moment, guys. Ma'am, you indicated that when you were with the police, that you said we did forensics. Where was this occurring?
At the airport police station.
Okay. And you said you recall them doing some fingernail scraping?
Correct.
You indicated that during this entire incident that you tried to fight back, correct?
I did.
And I mean, you tried to fight back, you did fight back.
I did.
And you indicated that, after the incident, you had a lot of soreness in various different areas, right?
Correct.
But you did indicate that, again, that you, at your words, that you're not a physical person. You don't work out, you don't, that you had never been in a fight before.
Correct.
And so this, am I fair to say this was a very, you even indicate, I believe, that this was a new experience. You had never felt that way before. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. You said you had never been in a car accident either, correct?
Correct.
You did you ever see, oh, I'm sorry, you did go to the hospital. Did you ever provide any kind of medical reports from your visit to the doctor to either the police or the prosecution?
I don't believe so. I don't remember signing any release or anything like that.
Okay.
So I don't think so.
You say you do recall at the airport police station that there were pictures taken
Correct.
of you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have anything further. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Mustaine?
You were asked about a few photographs that were shown to you or sent to you by a detective, is that correct?
Correct.
In those photographs, what did you see that was familiar to you?
Familiar.
Or what did you recognize in that photograph that you thought it was the same individual?
His,
No, Your Honor, objection. I asked whether that person was the individual that's sitting here. That was the person that you saw in the pictures, my client, who's sitting here. This line of questioning is not, it doesn't address that at all. What she's doing is something else. And I would object because at the end of the day.
What, couch it in legal terms, what's your objection? Like a
Your Honor,
foundation?
My objection, yes, like foundation and leading.
Response.
I mean, I can reword my question. I it was my understanding that he inquired into these pictures and was asking what she saw in them. And so I want to delve more into that, into what were the similarities that she recognized.
I think council's objection wasn't to your question about photographs,
Mhm.
but you phrased it, what was in that photo that made you think that it was?
I see.
Under cross, she said it was, not, I
Okay.
thought it was. Is that the objection, Mr. Becker?
Well, yes, Your Honor, and specifically, my question was very specific as to the fact that, hey, the picture that you saw, do you believe that that the person in those pictures was this man sitting here today?
Right.
And that's it.
So I think if I might suggest, a follow-up question would be, why?
Yeah, and I'll rephrase.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with, can you just describe what you saw in that photograph?
The attacker was wearing,
No, see, Your Honor, that's my objection. That's my objection. She's talking about the attacker. She's asking about those issues. I didn't ask about any of that. I asked about, was the person in the picture this man sitting right here? Because she was shown a picture of only one individual who is my
I'm with
client, who she indicates
Right.
is my client.
Right.
And so
And you want her to explain how she reached the conclusion that that was Mr. Jackson?
Well, yeah, and she also stated earlier that she recognized something on that person of the same individual who attacked her. So I think it's fair to go into what else she saw of that individual in the photograph that was familiar to her, and how she made that conclusion that it's the same person sitting in front of us.
But that's my point, Your Honor, is that she's asking now questions that have to do with how did you recognize that person and equate them to the attacker. I didn't ask that. She didn't bring any of that up during the direct. I asked, was the person that you saw in the picture, do you believe that person to be this man sitting right here, not the attacker? Do you believe that to be this person sitting right here? Because at the end of the day, she was showing a picture of a man who's now sitting here in greens and who she has now identified in court as her attacker. What counsel is asking is, how did you equate the person in the picture to your attacker? And I never asked that, and she never asked that during the direct. And so that's beyond the scope of what I asked. I didn't ask any of that. I didn't ask about the attacker. How was the person in the picture the attacker? How did you? None of it. I specifically limited it to, was the person in the picture, do you believe that person that you saw in the picture to be this man who's sitting here today? Because for the obvious purpose of, if you see a picture of one man and then you come to court and you see a picture that you believe is that man, you're going to say, yes, that's the man. And these issues about what else did you see, why do you believe that to be your attacker, etc., those were not brought out during the direct, and I did not address them during class.
Response.
I don't think they needed to be. I mean, he brought up the photographs. I wasn't going to introduce them because she already identified the defendant as her attacker. The people are the person sitting here and the person who attacked her are the same person.
No,
so
that's where you can't, she can't say that. You can't.
Well, that's this
she
lady's
said,
testimony.
that's what she said.
That's Miss Worthy's testimony.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
The photographs were introduced by the defendant's attorney. He asked about them. He inquired into what she saw, what was sent of her. She stated that she recognized the person because of the watch. I wanted to.
No, she didn't say that.
No, she didn't say that.
She didn't say anything about why she recognized.
She
the person.
didn't say that
She
statement?
just said that the person in the photographs was that man.
And I asked that specifically that way on purpose, just so that this could not be done.
Well, I think either way, the fact that the photographs were brought up on cross-examination, I think I can go into those photographs as well. I mean, it's honestly not that big of a deal. I think she already identified the defendant. However, I would like to go into those photographs since they were brought up as to it being the person that's sitting in this courtroom. I mean,
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I hate to,
All right.
but just because something is brought up doesn't mean that it's free game to do whatever we want with it. Yes, I brought up the pictures. I brought up the picture in a very limited way that was asked and answered and addressed by the witness. You don't, just because I bring up a picture doesn't mean that we get to ask any question that we want about it.
Well,
it's not any question, it's still.
Hold on. Except you brought up the pictures as it related to identification of that gentleman.
Here, sitting here today, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So I'm going to allow her to inquire as to what is it about that photo that identifies that person.
sitting here today.
That guy right there.
Fair enough.
So if she says he's got, I can't see that
That's-
well, but if she says
I
he's got a
understand.
scar over his left eyebrow and the picture had a scar over his left eyebrow,
Understood.
if
Fair
she
enough.
wants, if the pictures only talk about what he was wearing, you know, the dingy T-shirt and the gold watch, and he don't have a dingy T-shirt and a gold watch, I'm with you.
Agreed.
I'm with you. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you recall anything in that photograph of why the person looked, or why you were able to identify that person again?
Yes. Obviously, right off the bat, it was the exact description I gave to the police. But additionally to that, in my description, I was very specific as far as his build, kind of height, estimate, the physical of his being, right off the bat. So, his physical in addition to, what he was wearing, and obviously,
Okay, okay, thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Bicker, any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, ma'am, you can step down. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Watch your step. That'll get you both ways. Coming and going. Madam Prosecutor, any other witnesses?
Yes, Judge, we were able to contact the other complainant and she is willing to appear by Zoom.
As to this charge, this file,
Oh,
anything?
no, I'm sorry.
Let's
You wanna
kind
do
of,
it
let's
that way?
bifurcate them
That's fine.
if we can.
Okay,
No other witnesses then.
No, just.
yeah.
All right, so just to clarify, no other witnesses from the people?
No.
Any defense witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
I'm ready for argument on this case.
Judge, the people will be amending our felony complaint moving forward. We will be removing I think it's the set count 3. Let me make sure it's the. I actually think they're written the same way, but there were 2 counts of criminal sexual conduct in the second degree. We will be removing one of those counts. I believe one of them addressed her breasts, which the testimony did not disclose today. And so the charges that we will be requesting to move forward with is count 1, the assault with intent to do great bodily harm. The defendant did try to physically injure another person, the complainant, Ms. Worthy. He did so by grabbing the complainant, throwing her onto the ground, grabbing her head and neck and slamming it to the ground, as the testimony stated by Ms. Worthy. She said that her head did make contact with the cement ground multiple times, and that she had significant soreness and bruising in her neck and her head, and she was concerned of having a concussion based on the fact of the act of slamming her head onto that ground. And so at the time of the assault, the defendant did in fact also in fact have the ability to cause an injury, or at least he had that ability to do so. And then that he in fact intended to cause great bodily harm. And that intention, I think, is showed by the fact that if you're grabbing someone, throwing them to the ground, and then slamming their head multiple times onto a cement ground, you are intending to cause some sort of great bodily harm. Whether or not that injury is actually caused does not matter, but for the fact of the actual assault of how it happened, he in fact was trying to intend to cause great bodily harm. And great bodily harm means any physical injury that could seriously harm the health or function of the body. And in that case, that could have definitely seriously impaired or harmed her body, whether it's her neck or head. She could have gotten a gash. She could have gotten so many different sorts of injuries. Thankfully, she did not. But the fact is that the intention to commit that sort of assault was there. And then the count 2, which is the criminal sexual conduct in the second degree during the felony. Here, the defendant did intentionally touch the complaining witness's buttocks. He turned her over, specifically lifted her skirt. She was not wearing underwear that covered her skirt. I mean, regardless, it was exposed. By the terms of what the complainant described was grabbing onto her buttocks, was slapping her buttocks, was hitting it in different forms. And so he made contact in a sexual purpose to her butt by turning her over and lifting her skirt. And it was in fact done for a sexual purpose, or could have reasonably been construed to have been for a sexual purpose. As the complainant said, her concern was that she was going to be raped, given the way that the defendant was acting towards her. And then the fact that that sexual act was done in conjunction with the commission of the felony, and that felony was a great bodily harm. And so we request that count 1 and count 2, and then in the alternative, which would have been criminal sexual conduct in the 4th degree by force or coercion, be found over for the reasons stated.
Mr. Booker.
Your Honor, I have a couple of different issues I want to bring up. I'll try to get them as fast as I can. I guess I'm going to address the elements themselves and then come back a little bit. Your Honor, the first issue I want to address is I don't, maybe I'm wrong, I do not believe that the witness stated that. I'll just talk about it.
Counsel, I'm not going to think it's disrespectful if you sit down, and that'll put you closer to the.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Because I
Go ahead.
never felt tall before, but I guess. All right, Your Honor, the first issue I'd like to address is I do not believe that the witness indicated that her buttocks was grabbed. And I think, again, that she clearly testified that her buttocks was slapped or smacked and touched and contacted. There's no question about that. I say that to say that, again, when we're talking about intent for a sexual purpose, I would also point out that in this case, that while she did indicate that, that she had on a thong in essence, then that her buttocks was exposed, she did testify, there was no way for anyone to know that ahead of time that was the case. What we have here by the testimony is that an individual who is, in essence, she encounters a stranger, they're acting oddly, and they're talking to themselves. And then she is attacked by this individual who then, I'm not gonna go over every single fact, but in essence then assaults her and pulls up her skirt and smacks her on the rear end. Your Honor, I think as it relates to the CSC, I have 2 issues. One is that I would argue that there's not a sufficient showing of intent to do great bodily harm. While there certainly is an assault, and there's certainly the ability to cause harm, I don't think there's been a sufficient showing of a specific intent to cause great bodily harm. What we basically have is the witness was attacked, was assaulted. But again, I don't see how that's separated from an aggravated assault, Your Honor, where again, we have an assault, an attack, and even an injury. Even an injury still does not necessarily automatically lead to an assault with intent to do great bodily harm. I think, again, when we talk about an attack specifically intended to cause serious impairment to a bodily function, et cetera, we are talking about a higher level, and there are numerous assaults and attacks that do not raise to that level, Your Honor. I would submit that this is one of them that does not raise to that level. I would argue also that in conjunction with the witness's testimony about her injuries, that again, she did indicate that she was extremely sore, that she was bruised, and that she felt a certain way. And I think she very accurately described that. Look, I've never been through anything like this before. I've never been in an accident. I don't work out. I'm not used to being sore. I don't know. I'm not used to this overwhelming feeling of tiredness. Unfortunately, I have been in a fight, and I believe that again, when we're talking about situations like this, and we're talking about injuries and soreness and those types of things, I think it's important to put that into context, Your Honor, when we're talking about the end result. Again, I would submit, Your Honor, that the CSC's 2nd degree is tied part and parcel with the great bodily harm, and that there's this additional kind of increased assault. And I would just submit to the court that I don't believe that's been met here. I would argue that the criminal sexual conduct 4th degree, which does not include the during a felony, which in this case the felony being the assault with intent to great bodily harm, I think there has been a showing of that. But you know, at least depending on the court's, again, determination of, you know, sexual or some kind of, in that type of intent. But, you know, again, I go back to the great bodily harm, and I just don't think there's sufficient showing for that. And I would, as it relates to both CSC charges, I would argue that, I would submit that there hasn't been a sufficient showing of a criminal intent versus, quite frankly, what the testimony shows is that individual that attacked the witness had exhibited a lot of odd and strange behaviors, to the extent to which we cannot automatically assume that a smack to the buttocks was for that sexual intent. That's what I'm saying. Without any further commentary, without any further statements, without any further, hey, I'm going to do this, or I want this, or those types of issues. That's what I'm getting at, Your Honor. So with that, I'll rest.
Thank you. Ms. Morcisian.
Yes, just a few follow-up points. For the assault with intent to do great bodily harm, I mean, you have to look at the circumstances as a whole. She was alone, she was vulnerable, she was at her place of work. He followed her, he was honestly picked her, was following her, assaulted her, throws her onto the ground, which is a cement floor, and then is hitting her head to that floor, and her head is making contact. That is great bodily harm. That intention is there because of his actions. The actions are showing that he has an intent to cause serious bodily injury. She, I believe, stated on her testimony that she was moving her head kind of back and forth to prevent that from getting worse. She was actively trying to prevent anything worse from happening by screaming, by moving her body. And so just because the serious injury didn't occur doesn't mean that there wasn't an intent to do so. Furthermore, for the second degree, the CSE in the second degree, there was further action. He lifts up her skirt, and I wrote down specifically what she said in her testimony. She said he was slapping, hitting, and grabbing her buttocks. Those were the words that she used. And so what other intention can you possibly have by lifting someone's skirt and then doing that to someone's buttocks if it's not for a sexual purpose, given the circumstances, again, as a whole, when you're looking at everything that occurred? He did, in fact, commit a criminal sexual conduct during the commission of a felony, which was assault to do great bodily harm. He did not need to know whether or not what kind of underwear she was wearing. Again, that wouldn't have even made a difference because the act was there that his hands made contact with her butt multiple times in a way that any reasonable person, especially the complainant, interpreted for a sexual purpose. And so, again, for the purposes of this preliminary exam and our standard, the people believe that we have met our burden for probable cause to have those counts be bound over.
Thank you both. I think it is a weak factual situation for a GBH case, but it is not so weak that a reasonable trier of fact could not find that from the action. So I will bind over, excuse me, on the GBH count 1 and 1 count of second degree. AOI date is going to be the 20th at 9 a.m. next week. Oh, he's in custody next week. Yep. 13th, right? All right, you guys want a moment before we start on the
Yes,
Bowie case?
Thank you.
Yeah.
sent pictures that you believe to be this guy. So she said, her description. I recognize the baby. That was vicious. I mean, but tell me how that matters. I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm asking. Well, I'm saying it's just like for your job, like if you get injured, they send you the consent. I have multiple jobs. No, what I'm asking you is, how does it matter whether she did or didn't? I'm talking about based on the testimony that she gave today. Like, so for example, if somebody, and I asked, I asked if she gave it to the prosecutor. She said, no, I don't think so. But I'm asking. All right. Because this is not, what I'm saying is, what if what she said was true? Right? Now, what she said, she wasn't tagged, whatever, that's a different issue. Okay. I've never even met her. That's my point. That's that. What I'm wondering is why this instead of. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This is what happened to her. This is I have nothing to do with this. This is the question. All right. Well, I do. Still got to bond it over, and honestly, never even met this woman. That's the honest truth. So it's just like hearing it, you know. She really did get the same lesson. Her to say me is like for my life. I never been blamed for somebody. That's what's going on. Crazy.
Hi, on the iPhone, what is your name, please?
My name is Andrea Bowie.
Okay. And it's Bouie?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. We'll be in the courtroom in just a few minutes. If you just want to keep yourself muted until the judge calls you for questioning, okay?
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All rise. Before the court now in session, Judge Oakley is back.
Have a seat. All right, appearances on the People versus Raymond Jackson Jr.
Good morning, Your Honor. Sonam Movsisian on behalf of the people, P 83923.
May it please the court, Your Honor, title of the Raymond Jackson Jr. present to my left, P number 62647.
All right, and I think we've got a complainant on Zoom. Let's bring her in. Oh, there she is. Miss Bowie, am I pronouncing your name correctly? You're gonna have to unmute.
Yes.
Good morning, ma'am. If you have a camera
Good
you can
morning.
activate, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you. Ms. Musician?
Thank you.
Ma'am, if you can't hear us, just wave your hand like you're in school or something.
Okay.
Matter of fact, raise your hand. I'll swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth today?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can they see me or can she see me or the direction it is or?
She can. Why is it not doing it? Ms. Boyd, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
Hi, Miss Marie, can you see me?
I see the courtroom.
Okay,
You're just barely on
Yeah.
the edge of the screen.
I see. Okay, there it is. Okay,
Actually, if you stay at the table, you're gonna be more visible.
okay, I can do that. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Andrea Bowie. It's AndreaBowie.
Okay, thank you. And where do you currently reside, Ms. Bowie?
In Ohio. Or are you asking where am I right now?
No, just so you reside in Ohio and where are you currently?
I'm in Florida.
Okay. Do you recall what you were doing on the morning of May 14th, 2022?
Yes,
And where were you?
I was at the Detroit airport.
And is that in the city of Romulus and Wayne County?
Yes, I believe so.
And what were you doing at the airport that morning?
I was dropping off my son for his
Do you
flight.
remember what time that was?
Yes, his flight was actually at around 8 o'clock. He missed the flight, but that was the time that we got there.
8 o'clock in the morning, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And how did you get to the airport?
I drove.
And where or how did you drop off your son?
We actually had to take the shuttle bus because our car broke down as soon as we got there.
Okay, and do you remember what shuttle bus you took?
Yes, I remember the bus. I don't remember like the number and stuff, but I do remember the bus that we had to take.
And where did the shuttle bus, I guess, pick you up from and then drop you off at?
It picked us up at the terminal with Spirit and all of those. But Delta was where we needed to go. And we were at the wrong terminal. But since the car was broke down, we had to get on the shuttle bus to go to Delta's terminal. So we went down the it's like in the basement area. I mean, well, basement, but downstairs at the bottom. And then we got on the shuttle, got to Delta. I dropped him off, and then I came back on that same shuttle.
Okay. And when you came back on that same shuttle, where were you going to when you were coming back?
I was going to my car, which was at the other terminal, the one that has American Airlines, Spirit, all of the other airlines besides Delta.
Okay, is that called the Evans Terminal?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
When you got off the shuttle, where did you go?
I went immediately up the escalator, and then I was headed towards. I was trying to head towards where my car was, but I got lost. I didn't know where I was going.
Okay, were you, I'm sorry, I don't know if you already mentioned this, where exactly was your car parked?
It was parked outside the Evans terminal.
Okay. And so when you, you said you got off the shuttle and you were trying to locate your car again.
Yes.
Okay. And you were not familiar with that area?
No, I was not.
Okay. So, did anyone else get off the shuttle bus with you at that time?
Yes.
And did you have any sort of interaction with that individual?
When I got up the stairs, I noticed I was lost. And, when I was heading back that way, he started to approach me and then talk to me, asking me, was I lost? And I was like, yeah, I actually am. He kept saying that he worked there. So I trusted him because he said he worked there.
I'm sorry, you said he worked there?
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then he asked me to follow him. And I said, okay. But then, I like I said, when he said he worked there, I just thought he worked there. He kept saying he knew his way around. He worked there. He knew his way around. So he asked me to follow him. He led me to this hallway. He led me down this hallway into this elevator. And then we went to the second floor. I remember that. And then when we got out of the elevator, it was just me and him, and there was nothing around, like just a parking garage to my right. And then I could see how you could go outside, and there were some cars parked there, but there was nobody around. So I was like, okay,
familiar to you?
no, not at all. It was completely not where I was parked at all. It's probably the opposite side of the building.
So at this point, what were you thinking?
I was thinking I was in trouble. I was thinking, I just hope I can make it out of this alive, honestly.
And so what happened next?
I said, he tried to approach me, and then I said, I'm gonna go back. And then he just kind of looked like, no, you're not. And then I was like, and so he approached me and was stopping me from getting on the elevator. And kind of like pushed me back. And then, I kind of like try to maneuver my way over to the elevator. And he pulled his pants down, kept saying what he wanted to do to me, or what he wanted to do, or what he wanted me to do. And I don't remember word for word, but I just remember I was thinking, okay, I don't want to do any of that. I got to get out of here. And so I just kept, yes.
Sorry, go ahead. You can finish. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just kept repeating. I mean, his pants were down, exposing himself. And I just kept repeating, I got to go back. I got to go. And I remember I had my phone, but I said, if I reach for it, what if he takes it? So there's a lot going through my mind. I just knew I had to get back to my car. You know, I just wanted to be able to. I'm thinking I want to make it home to my husband, kids, you know, and so let me just hurry up and get out of here. And
Okay, I'm
so,
gonna stop you there just so we can go over a few of the things that you just mentioned, okay?
okay,
So, you stated initially you told him you wanted to go back, is that correct?
yes.
And what was his response at that point?
He looked at me like, no, you're not going anywhere. And like, if you could, it's just this. And then he just approached me, came, and then he was stopping me from getting on the elevator.
How was he stopping you from getting on the elevator?
Kind of just put his hand out, kind of just put his hand out and pushed me back. But, I just kept trying to get around him.
Can you describe what was around you? Like, where were you guys positioned?
I was, okay, it's just this little, like you get off the elevator, it's just this little hallway. There's like a staircase. There's, like I said, the parking garage to your right, and straight ahead was like a door. I knew there was nothing out there, so I didn't want to go out there and then get trapped out there. And then, so I knew I had to get back on the elevator. We were like I was like headed towards that door, because I didn't know where he was taking me. I mean, I had no idea. I thought, man, do I go back in out that door? And then, but as I looked out the door, I knew there was nothing out there. It was just cars. So I couldn't go that way. That's why I knew I had to get back on the elevator. No,
Was there anything behind you other than the elevator?
no, it just like a window, a couple windows, but it was the elevator behind. The elevator was actually to my left, because it was behind me at first, but as I was trying to maneuver, it was to my left.
Okay. And so you stated that he put his hand out preventing you from going into the elevator, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then did you say anything else to him?
I just told him I didn't want to do anything with him.
And what was he saying to you?
He just kept saying, he was referencing his body parts, talking about how it was large. And like that was, supposed to get me excited. I don't know. But, I don't know him. Obviously, I don't want to do anything with him. And then he said, he kept saying, if you touch it, I'll let you go. I remember that specifically. Because I was thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna have to touch it so I can go. So that I remember.
And when he exposed himself, what was he wearing?
Um, I remember white. That's all I remember, like a white t-shirt, some type of pants. I don't remember what color the pants were. But I know he had a mask on.
Was he wearing any underwear?
I can't tell. I didn't even really observe that much. I just knew that his body part was out.
Okay. And so when he exposed himself, what body part was out?
His penis.
Okay, and did he do anything with his penis?
He was just like holding it, and whatever he was doing, I don't, I was just looking. I really wasn't trying to like look, but I just know he was holding it.
And I understand that you weren't trying to look, but when he was holding it, did he maneuver or gesture it in any way?
I believe so, yes.
And so what happened after that? What happened once he was asking you, if you touch it, I'll let you go?
I just pushed my way through to the elevator. Once I got there, I pressed the button. And then I would say this went on for maybe about 5 to 10 minutes. I would say maybe longer. I don't know. When you're in that moment, you just lose concept of time. But I just know it was at least 10 minutes. And so as soon as I could get to the elevator, I pressed the button. It opened, and I pushed my way on. And then he was still saying, if you touch it, I'll let you go. Because he wouldn't let me close the elevator. But I said, you know what? I'm going to ring the bell. And so I rang the bell. I kept ringing the bell. And then that's when he backed off.
Okay. Do you
The
remember how many
emergency
times-
bell.
Emergency bell? Okay. Do you remember how many times you told him that you wanted to go?
I'd say at least 5 to 6 times. I mean, I don't remember exact, but definitely that was all I kept saying. I mean,
And was he allowing you to leave?
no, especially not at first. I just kind of had to push past him to get to the elevator. He was not letting me go. The only time he backed down, like I said, was when I rang the emergency bell.
Okay. And so what did you do after you were on the elevator and you were able to get away?
Very first thing I did was FaceTime my daughter so she could see exactly where I was at
And then what did you
and
do?
help. And, I was shaking, I was crying, and I said, I need your help. Just help guide me because I don't know where I'm at. Do you see where I'm at? What is this place? And she just kept telling me, just keep walking straight, look for the elevator. Look for the escalator. Um, look for where you came from, basically. When she was just trying to help guide me back. She's just like, what happened? I couldn't even talk. I was like very distraught. And so I get to the place where it looks like where I came from. And then she was like, okay, great. Just keep straight that way in the opposite direction. Hopefully you can get back. I was like, okay. And so that's what I did. And sure enough, took me a while, but I did find the terminal
Okay.
where I was at, where my car was parked.
Can you describe describe what the individual who approached you looked like?
He was dark skinned, tall, taller than me, probably about 6 foot. And he had a mask on, t-shirt, book bag. I believe he had a hat on. But I got a good look at his face because he took his mask down, you know, while he was talking. So
Sorry, you froze for a second. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. Do you mind just restating a couple of the things that you noticed?
he, like I said, his mask was down, so I got a good look at his face. You know, he was dark skinned, tall. Like I said, white t-shirt, dark pants. He had a book bag on.
Okay.
Yeah. Or some sort of backpack thingy.
And prior to this incident, including like both the shuttle bus and when you saw him outside of the shuttle bus, had you seen this individual before?
Never in my life.
And that individual was the same individual that was on the bus with you and got off with you?
Yes.
Was anyone else on the shuttle bus with you at that time?
No.
And so if you were to see this individual again, would you be able to recognize him?
Yes.
Judge, I don't know how best to do this, just given the distance. Is it something where?
No, I can see him.
You can see him?
Yes, it's him.
Can you describe who it is that you're talking about?
I mean, I don't know his name, but
Oh, I mean, sorry, like a description of what you're seeing, what he's wearing, or where he is sitting.
okay, I mean, he has the mask on, the green jumpsuit, you know, dark skin, like I said, around 6 feet or whatever. And he's sitting right there next to the gentleman in the suit.
And that's the individual that assaulted you on that date?
Yes.
Okay. Let the record reflect that the complainant has identified Mr. Raymond Jackson Jr. as the individual that assaulted her.
Noted for the record.
And Ms. Bowie, did you report this to the police?
Yes, I did. As soon as I got in my car, I called, you know, a friend of mine that lives in Detroit, and he told me immediately, just hang up, call the police. He was the second person I called, you know, because first of all, my car was broke down, so I had to, you know, get that attended to too. So I called the police, and an officer came, took my statement.
And then at a different time, were you shown photographs of various individuals? What we call a photo lineup?
Yes.
Okay, and do you recall how many individuals were in that photo lineup?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? Somebody was at my door.
Yes, I think because you're moving, it's difficult for the connection, so you have to stay in place. Okay, there you go. So do you recall how many individuals were in the photo lineup that you received?
Yeah, there were 6.
Okay, and how did you receive that photo lineup?
By email.
Okay, and then did you speak to a officer about the photo lineup?
Yes, I did.
And how did you speak to that officer?
I believe over the phone.
Okay, were you in Ohio at that point?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember how many days after you received that photo lineup? Like after the assault, did you receive the photo lineup?
It had been a couple of weeks, I believe. Maybe, no, I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but it had been some time since it happened.
Okay, and yeah, I don't want you to guess, so it's okay if you don't remember.
Okay.
In that photo lineup, did you recognize any of the individuals as the, I guess,
Yes,
what
I
were you
did.
asked to look for? What were you asked to look for on that photo lineup?
I was asked to look for the man who assaulted me that day, and I looked at the photos and pretty much knew who he was, but like I said, he had a hat on, so I wasn't sure about the hair, and but I said this one is definitely him. And there were two that kind of looked similar, so that's why I said, without the hair, but definitely this one.
And so do you remember which one you said definitely this one? It's hard for me to show you that photo lineup now just because you're on Zoom, but do you recall where that person was placed on the photo lineup?
I believe he was the fifth one. It was on the
Okay.
bottom row.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, but that's, I mean, Judge, this is People's Proposed Exhibit 1. It has not been labeled yet, but it's the photo lineup. And then do you remember who you said that you may have thought it was someone else because of the hair?
Yes,
Which number
because he
that one
had
was?
yeah, he had a hat on, so I wasn't sure if he had the hair or not that the gentleman in 5 had, and that one was number 3, I believe.
Okay, so you picked between 3 and 5, and you think, or you told the officer that you thought it definitely was 5?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, the people would like to admit the proposed exhibit 1. It is circled for the 2 that was selected.
Mr. Bickert?
No objection for exam purposes.
Thank you.
When you said he was wearing a hat, do you remember what color it was? Or you said, you mentioned something over his,
I don't
do you remember what color?
No, I don't remember the color.
Okay. And at any point other than him putting his hand out and pushing you, did any part of his body make contact with your body?
Well, when I was getting ready to leave, like I said, he kept saying, if you touch it, I'll let you go. So I was thinking, oh my God, I do not want to touch it. And so, I just reached out like I was gonna touch it, but I just kind of pushed him away, and then I got on the elevator and left.
Okay. There are, and I don't quite know how to do this. I want to show her 2 other photographs.
Do you need them?
I guess. I would like to, just in case, if I don't know what cross is gonna look like, so I would like to have,
Put them on then if you need to.
yeah, okay, so I wonder if I can just approach the camera. to show
Put them on then if you need to.
Oh, put them on that, okay, thank you.
Let's move it along.
Okay, I have no further questions, thank you.
Mr. Booker.
Thank you, Anna. Ma'am, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
All right. If I ask you anything that you can't hear or it seems unclear, just let me know and I'll rephrase it, okay?
okay,
Ma'am, can I first ask, you're joining us via Zoom today. Are you on a
yes,
telephone or on a computer screen?
I'm on a phone.
Okay. And just a little while ago, prosecution asked you if you saw the person that you've been discussing and talking about today, could you ID them? You remember that question?
Yes,
Okay. And you said, yes, you could. And then you subsequently said that you believe that this gentleman sitting next to me is the gentleman who you dealt with that day, correct?
yes,
All right. And you're doing that from what you can see via your phone, via Zoom, correct?
yes.
Okay. All right. Now, you indicated that you were sent a photo lineup via email, correct?
Yes,
And you spoke with an officer on the phone while you viewed the photo lineup. Is that correct?
yes.
Do you know, was there anybody else that was a part of that phone call?
I don't remember, but
Okay.
I believe it was just the officer.
And did you ever make a written statement in relation to this case?
I mean, when the officer came, he took my report
Okay.
and
I guess what I'm asking.
he wrote
I guess what
everything
I'm
out.
asking- Okay, he wrote everything out. Did you sign it?
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. Do you ever recall writing anything out in your own words or in your own handwriting?
I believe I did. But I'm not certain on that.
When you observed the lineup, you yourself, you didn't make any writing or anything on any papers or any lineup photographs, correct?
Well, it was email. It was over the email.
Here, I have a copy of it.
Ma'am, I'm holding, and I'm holding a copy of the lineup itself. And what I'm asking is, you didn't make any marks or writing on this paper, correct?
I didn't have a hard copy. It was an email. So I circled on the email
You circled on.
and I sent it back. Yes, I believe so. I think that was what I don't remember exactly how I talked to him. I looked at the lineup and sent it back.
What I'm getting at, ma'am, is you said that you circled something. You yourself did that?
It was whatever I did was over the computer. I didn't have a piece of paper. At least at that time. Now he may have sent me a separate paper later, but I mean, when I first looked at it, it was over email.
I'm gonna ask a different question, it's gonna seem a little odd, but you didn't put JC, your initials are not JC, correct?
No,
Thank you. And during the discussion, well, let me back up a little bit. You say that you indicated to the officer, you picked two people in the photo lineup, is that fair?
yeah, but I told him, It depends because like I said, I didn't see his hair.
I understand it. And so that's why you picked number 5 and number 3, correct?
Yes.
And you've indicated that you made certain statements. Did you ever, do you recall ever putting in writing or asking anyone else, saying, hey, I definitely know it's number 5, but I also picked number 3?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier.
Did you write that down?
I don't remember.
Do you recall, well, have you?
Honestly, I don't remember. But I can tell you that's the gentleman because when I came to court before, I saw him. It brought back memories.
Ma'am, maybe observations at court before are not part of this question, okay? But I would ask you this, when you saw the photo lineup, that was closer in time to the assault than today, correct?
Yeah, but we were just in court and I saw him recently. I mean, when our court date was set.
So the last time you were in court, you saw a man at court, correct?
Yes, and it was him. And when I saw him, everything came back to me at that time. Because
Okay.
looking at a photo that looks old at that,
Okay. When you saw him, he wasn't standing next to a bunch of other dark-skinned tall men, correct? And that's yes or no?
even if he was, I know who he was.
Ma'am, was he standing next to another group of dark-skinned black men wearing green jail clothing? Was he standing next to anyone else when you
No.
saw him and said, hey, yes, that's him?
No, but I knew.
Okay, and when you saw him, he was sitting
I
there.
said no, but I knew.
Okay, all right. And when you see him here today, he's sitting next to me in jail clothes, correct?
Yes, but I know.
Okay.
I can tell. I knew immediately when I saw him who it was.
Because, okay. And was that by his face or his body?
That was by his eyes.
By his eyes. Were his
Yes.
eyes in the picture that you saw in the photo?
Yeah. And I told the officer, I said, those are his eyes. I told him that. I said, I just don't remember if he had hair or not.
I'm going to move on, man, but I just want to be clear. Regardless of what you said, any statements that were made, you picked 2 of the 6 individuals, correct?
Yes, because like I said, they were both dark skinned. Only one did not have hair.
And you became sure when you saw my client at court on a previous date, correct?
Judge, I'm gonna object to.
Absolutely.
Already asked and answered. Yeah, but,
What's the objection?
asked and answered. I believe this is pretty repetitive.
Response?
There's been a lot of back and forth about it. I'm just making sure, because she said a bunch of things about, I'm sure,
I'll allow
I'm not
it.
sure, I'm just clarifying.
I'll allow it, restate it.
Ma'am, and you said that you became sure when you saw him at court, correct?
Yes, I was sure then, and was sure now, and I was sure when I saw the lineup. But like I said, looking at a photo is not the same as seeing the person in person.
Okay. Were you ever asked to view a live lineup?
What's that?
Were you ever asked to view a live in-person lineup?
No. I don't believe so.
Ma'am, when the person indicated they were an employee and then proceeded to kind of direct you to a certain location, you went with them voluntarily, correct?
Because I did, I don't know. I mean,
Ma'am, was that, just answer yes or no. It's gonna make it a lot easier on everybody.
yeah, I did
The elevator that you
because
got
of
on,
what he said he was.
but the elevator that you got on, that you said you went down to the second floor, you got on that elevator voluntarily, correct?
Yeah,
And that's the same elevator that you went back up when you left that location, correct?
yeah.
Okay.
But let me say this. When I got
Ma'am,
on the elevator,
Just answer the questions, ma'am. Just answer the questions.
okay,
So my question is, at the time when you got off of the elevator and you looked around and you decided that you thought you were in the wrong area, the individuals you were with, they had not said or done anything that had forced you to get to that location, correct?
well, when I got on the elevator, I felt like
No, ma'am, I'm not asking about what after you got off.
I knew I was
Up until
probably
that
in
point.
trouble.
Okay, my question, ma'am, is when you got on the elevator.
Although I
the elevator
was
went-
voluntarily doing this, yes, I was still lured to that area
Ma'am, I understand. that-
and under false pretenses.
John, I'm sorry.
Even at that, under false
Ms.
pretenses.
Bowie, this is the judge. You're making this much more difficult on everyone than it needs to be. I understand you've got a story that you want to tell, but that's not the place for it. This is a Q&A. So when the attorney asks the question, just stick to answering the question that's asked, please.
Okay,
Proceed, Mr. Pickert.
Thank you. Ma'am, my question is, up until the point where you decided that you felt uncomfortable, which is on the second floor after you got off the elevator, correct?
yes, but I felt uncomfortable on the
Ma'am,
elevator.
it's not- yeah, ma'am, it's a yes or no. Yes, that's
Yes.
correct, right? Okay, at that point, nobody had touched you or forced you onto the elevator or down to the second floor. Is that correct?
It's correct, but I just,
Ma'am, if it's correct, that's a yes.
Next question.
yeah,
Then, at some point, you said that you felt uncomfortable and you wanted to get it back and leave on the elevator, correct?
yes,
And in fact, that is the elevator that you ended up getting on and going and leaving the area, correct?
leaving what area?
The area that you were in when you felt uncomfortable. I believe you said it was on the second floor and that there was a parking garage nearby.
Yeah,
Okay. At some point, you made the determination that you wanted to leave there and you got back on that same elevator and left, correct?
and not without a fight. But yeah,
Did you get back on that same elevator and leave?
yes,
Okay. Now you said not without a fight. Am I fair in your description of what happened? You never had a fight. Is that fair to say?
no, it wasn't a fight.
Never a physical altercation.
Well, I don't use that word exactly. She used that exact word. So you indicated at some point that you tried to get on a little bit, and I believe you said that the person kind of put his hand out. Is that?
Well, he was pushing me. He was pushing me towards, away from the elevator.
Okay. And then eventually you said that you pushed the button on the elevator and had to wait for the elevator to come. Is that fair?
No, I didn't have to wait for the elevator. I pushed the button. The elevator opened.
Okay, it opened right away. and then you said you pushed your way past, right?
Yes,
That
yes.
was the only contact, that occurred between the two of you, is that when you pushed your way past, correct?
No, that wasn't the only contact. I said this from the beginning. He was pushing me back.
Was that before or after he put his hand out?
That was immediately when I said I wanted to go.
Okay. Okay. At some point, then you're able to push past, get on the elevator and leave. Is that what happened?
Yes,
Okay. And after that, there's no more further contact with that man. Is that correct?
as soon as I got on the elevator and left, yes.
I understand that that individual said several things to you. You indicated that he talked about their private car, etc. Well, strike it. No. You certainly recall that the individual had a hat on, correct?
Yes, I believe so. I'm not sure what was covering his head exactly, but something was covering his head.
Ma'am, do you ever recall telling the police that you were near some moving walkways?
I don't recall. I don't know.
How sure are you about being on the second floor after you got off the elevator?
I looked at the floor he chose.
Okay. Okay. After you left on the elevator, after you got away from this incident and you went back upstairs, well, did you go back upstairs? I said something.
Yes,
Okay, and when you got back upstairs, do you recall what you saw as far as just the airport itself? Like, do you recall anything what you saw next at the top of the elevator or when you got off the elevator?
yeah, it was like a little hallway. I had to keep trying to get out of that area. And then the next thing I saw were those things, that carry you, the walking, the moving walkway.
Yeah, I have nothing further. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
1 second, please. I have no further questions, thank you.
Ma'am, I thank you for your time. We're gonna let you go now.
Okay,
Thank you
Thank
much. Enjoy
you.
your day. I understand your sister's got some health issues. Good luck with that.
yes, thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. It's safe to assume no defense witnesses, Mr. Bicker.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, I'm ready for argument.
Judge, the people respectfully request that count 1 and 2 both be bound over. I do have some various arguments in the alternative as well, just in case, but for count one for kidnapping, we believe that the defendant did knowingly restrain another person, that other person being the complainant, Andrew Bowie. Restraint can mean anything that's restricting the person's movements or confining them, restricting the person's movement or to confine the person so as to interfere with that person's liberty without the person's consent or without legal authority. That restraint does not have to exist for any particular time. And so specifically here, the defendant did knowingly restrain the complaining witness and restricted her movement. He did so by falsely indicating that he was an airport employee. He noticed that she was lost. She's not familiar with the area. And then he indicated that he was an airport employee under false pretenses to take her to a more remote or isolated location. As the testimony indicated, that she did not, there was no one else around where they were. He got off the bus at the same time as she did, and then led her through an area, down the elevator into this, I guess, I don't really know what you would call it, maybe like a corridor where she was kind of cornered near the elevator. And she said that she saw a parking lot on the left-hand side, or sorry, the right-hand side, the elevator was to her left. So he, again, falsely indicated he was an airport employee. He told her to follow her down to her car. So he lured her into that area, into a more, again, isolated area. She was not from the state. She didn't know where she was. He then restricted her movement by preventing her from leaving. She stated several times that she told him that she wanted to leave, that she didn't want to do what he was asking of her, and that he kept pushing her back while she was trying to get to the elevator. That seemed to have been the, I guess, the main thing that was going on, was this back and forth of her saying no to him and him pushing her back, thereby restricting her movement, and he had no authority to have restricted her movement. He then pulled down his pants and exposed his penis, and by doing so, she did also indicate that he was somewhat like had his hand on it and was maneuvering or fondling it in some way. So that would go to, sorry, count 2 for the aggravated indecent exposure. But to go back to the kidnapping, so in addition to him restricting her movement, he did confine her, again, with interfering in her liberty to leave. He kept telling her, if you just touch it, I'll let you go. She said that's the main thing that she remembered him saying, if you touch it, I'll let you go. Again, indicating that he wanted something out of the situation in order for him to allow her to leave. So again, that indicates his actions are showing that he was restraining her or confining her, and in order for her to have left his restraint, she had to have done something in response. That the confinement time doesn't matter. So honestly, even let's say if she did voluntarily walk down.
Let me make a suggestion. If it doesn't matter, let's not talk.
Okay, fair enough. Again, but okay, so then just moving forward, when he did so for the kidnapping, the second element is that he did so with the intention to engage in a criminal sexual penetration or criminal sexual contact with that person. That is the contact where he exposed himself and was telling her to touch it and telling her to do things to it, or like she said, he was describing certain things in relation to his genitals, and that is why it would fall under the category of engaging in some sort of criminal sexual contact. The aggravated indecent exposure, already as indicated, he exposed his genitals, that he knew that he was exposing his genitals, and he voluntarily pulled his pants down and made statements to her, and while he was doing so, he was maneuvering or fondling his genitals. I think even if those circumstances are not met, then, I mean, we could, if what I mean by that is that if the aggravated aspect of that is not met, then we would request that in the alternative indecent exposure, without their aggravated aspect, be replaced for that count. And then I do have an argument for unlawful imprisonment in the alternative to kidnapping. I can wait depending on whether or not you would like to hear that, or see what your decision is and then present that argument.
Okay, Mr. Bickert.
I hesitate, because counsel somewhat anticipates my argument. I'm curious to hear. I do submit, that this is more akin to unlawful imprisonment, based on some of the things were already stated in the sense of there was no asportation here. There was no, this was by the witnesses on account. She voluntarily went to the location where she was at. She testified. I'll leave that argument for another day. If she testified, yes, the person made some kind of attempt to block her from the elevator, to keep her from getting on the elevator, et cetera. I acknowledge that. I would submit, Your Honor, that at that point, we have a false imprisonment situation, and not a kidnapping situation. As it relates to the.
Hold on, let's talk about the kidnapping. I'm just reading the complaint. I don't see anything in the complaint that requires him to take her anywhere.
I'm sorry.
I don't see anything in the complaint that requires him to take her anywhere.
It doesn't. I was actually also gonna pull up the jury instructions, which is what I have it on for. But there is no requirement for that, or like to take her, or that it has to be voluntary or forceful or any of those things. It just requires some sort of restraint of that individual. And then the other requirement is that that restraint was for some sort of purpose, and it lists various options.
Go ahead.
I understand that, Your Honor. And at the end of the day,
Don't get me wrong. I think we could pull 20 people on the street and nobody would think this is a kidnapping. But the law says this is a kidnapping.
My argument remains the same, Your Honor, and I understand the court point.
And I think it's an extremely weak kidnapping, but it says restrain, and he prevented her from getting on the elevator until the buzzer. Right.
And I think the key at that point then becomes for what purpose, and I'll leave that again for another day.
I think it's all factual. I think it's all factual.
As it relates to count 2, Your Honor, I just would indicate that I think it's a stretch to argue or indicate that that the witness testified that my client was fondling himself. He was asked whether she was asked whether his hand was on his private part.
Well, her testimony was that he was manipulating.
Well, that was the word that was.
I think that was the witness's word. Because I was listening to hear whether or not he had his hand on his junk, and the word she used was manipulate. I'm almost positive. So it was more than just, dropped his pants and he's standing there.
I guess that I wasn't there, so, but I would submit, I believe that word didn't come from the witness. I believe it came from the prosecution, but either way, that is my argument, Your Honor, and the court finds that is the testimony.
That's my memory, Mr. Brook.
Understood.
And once again, probable cause is a low burden.
It is, Your Honor.
And I think the people have met on both these counts.
I understand that, Your Honor.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna bind over. AOI date's gonna be the same as the other case on the 13th at 9. Mr. Jackson, I wish you luck downtown. Bond is continued. Mr. Bicker, we've got a stack of misdemeanor files from the airport that we're gonna give him a notice on.
Oh.
Just at some point, we gotta deal with those pre-trials.
Understood.
We just gotta get him we gotta get him on the calendar and get him MIDC. Yeah. We'll get him MIDC attorney. Thank you, folks.
Dealing with different type of clientele. Very different.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I got back because of what I did with experience.
Yeah.
Well, because it didn't take. And then my neighbor. What happened? So I got a plate. So they were, well, the plate turned out to not test the car had been stopped. So then, because I'm like, why is this on the truck? No, I turned over that truck. Oh, like, that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so then they're like. The judge had ruled you're not allowed to say this because they didn't charge someone.
Okay.
3 other ways to get there.
Yeah.
So I told this thing. Oh, I know, it's, you know, I was trying.
Yeah.
I know, I got it, I know, I'm doing it. Roll in there, sure enough, hung jury, right? God, so, but at the end of the week, I mean, because but I couldn't even understand what I was doing first.
Yeah.
But you know, but like I said, we were in her house. I was there and she's making her house, and she's just like her church. So her son calls, hey, come home. There actually. And it really, you know, it really changed my, you know, viewpoint of
Yeah.
the home house. And so, you know, you start to see things.
Carry
a little
those
different.
cases a little bit.
Yeah. So you see different stuff, but these, you know.
I agree with you. These are very hard. If I was ever a defense attorney, I don't think I could do these.
Bad, worse, but it's like.
Can I have a colored one of this? Or do you have an extra? Can I take yours? Or is it online, the color?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, problem was, I gotta see this guy. All right, well, I got what she
So you
said.
had to put both, yeah. So.
Yeah, she was, I got excited about it, and she started throwing that out.
Did you have any notes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I was gonna do.
But no sign.
So that's what I was talking about.
Are you also representing him on the misdemeanor case? He has a misdemeanor domestic violence that occurred 8 hours before the dog. Because that's the other thing is.
Unless it's somehow.
Okay. I don't know, they're not related, it's a different victim, but they're kind of related because of the proximity. I think it's gonna have to come up because he does it so close in time and he's wearing a seatbelt. And she can recognize that what he was wearing. Well, no, more specifics, all I'm saying is there was some more
No, I got you.
specific things like his
Well,
head, the
well,
shoes, the
I started to
backpack.
explain that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's gonna sound different when it all comes together.
Yeah.
But I admit it,
All right, have a good day, guys. Bye, thank you.
no, and so when I see it, it's like, you know, like.
It is a lot of it.
Yeah.
There is a lot of work in
I mean,
there.
obviously for good reasons.
Right. Yeah, it's insane.
You know, but I was reading it. But that was what started. That would have been, that's too much.
I mean, yeah, that's, Actually, in between you and I. No, I'm okay. Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day. Not sure. You think it would be quicker?